Have you ever felt the pull of a powerful idea, a collective energy that seems to have a life of its own? Or perhaps you've been struck by a story, a myth, or a dream that feels ancient and deeply familiar, even if you've never encountered it before. These experiences touch upon two fascinating concepts, the egregore and the archetype. They're often confused because both are invisible forces that shape our minds and societies. But they are fundamentally different, operating on entirely separate levels of reality. Understanding this difference is crucial for anyone interested in psychology, spirituality, and personal freedom. It is the key to telling the difference between the timeless structures of our being and the temporary constructions of our culture. So let's dive in and untangle these two powerful collective forces. First, let's look at their origin and fundamental nature. We'll start with the archetype. The great psychologist Carl Jung described archetypes as primordial, universal patterns of human experience. They originate from what he called the collective unconscious, a deep, shared layer of the human psyche that transcends history and culture. Archetypes weren't invented by a specific group of people. They actually precede societies. They are the psychic bedrock upon which cultures are built. They burst forth spontaneously in our myths, our dreams, our art, and our religions, all across the world and throughout time. Think of classic examples like the hero setting out on a great journey, or the wise old sage offering profound guidance. We also have the nurturing mother, the mysterious shadow, the clever trickster, and the powerful cycle of death and rebirth. These aren't just characters. They are blueprints for experience. An archetype is a universal potential, a non-local, unfabricated pattern of consciousness. Now, let's contrast that with the egregore. If an archetype is a natural psychic formation, an egregore is a human-made psychic construction. It's an energetic form created and sustained by a group of people through their shared attention, emotions, beliefs, and rituals. An egregore is born in time, it grows and evolves in time, and eventually it can also wither and die. Think of a nation with its flags, anthems, and shared history. That's an egregore. An institutional religion, a political movement, or a powerful ideology like communism or capitalism, all are egregores. Even a family with its strong, unspoken rules and identity can form a powerful egregore. The key thing to remember is that an egregore is built, piece by piece, by a collective. Even if its influence becomes so ingrained that we forget it was ever created, its origin is always tied to a specific group and a specific time. This brings us to our second key difference, temporality. Archetypes are eternal, while egregores are transient. The archetype is transhistorical. It exists outside of linear time. The hero's journey was as relevant to ancient Greeks as it is to us watching a superhero movie today. It appears in every culture in different forms, but its core structure is unchanging. It never disappears. An egregore, on the other hand, is profoundly historical. It has a birth date. It grows in power as more people feed it with their belief and energy, and it can decline and collapse when people stop believing in it. The Roman Empire was a mighty egregore, but it fell. The archetype of the emperor or the conquering hero, however, lives on. An archetype can express itself through countless different cultural forms, but an egregore dies out when it no longer serves the purpose of the group that created it. So, how do these two forces actually affect our minds? They act on the psyche in very different ways. The archetype acts through resonance. It doesn't push, it pulls. It calls to us from the depths of our own consciousness, awakening dormant parts of ourselves. It sets an inner movement in motion, revealing new dimensions of our soul. An archetype doesn't impose itself. It tends to emerge when the psyche is ready for a new stage of growth. This encounter can be transformative, initiatory, and yes, sometimes destabilizing. But its ultimate function is to open us up to a larger reality. The egregore, however, acts through conditioning. Its primary function is to reinforce beliefs, structure our identity, and stabilize our behavior. It works by defining who is us and who is them. The egregore operates through repetition and normalization, creating a sense of shared reality for the group. It provides comfort and reassurance, but in doing so, it can also confine us within a limited set of ideas and behaviors. An egregore doesn't reveal our inner depths. It organizes our outer world. This leads us to their relationship with our sense of self, our identity. An archetype triggers a transformation of identity. It fundamentally disrupts the ego. When the hero archetype is activated within you, it calls you to transcend your current limitations. When you confront the shadow archetype, you are forced to face the parts of yourself you have denied. The archetype of death and rebirth imposes a complete metamorphosis. It doesn't give you a neat, fixed identity to wear. Instead, it initiates a lifelong process of becoming, a journey of transformation. An egregore, conversely, works by fixing your identity. It gives you a prepackaged role to play, a strong sense of belonging, and a clear identity narrative. I am an American. I am a Christian. I am a feminist. I am a member of this family. You are given a story, I am this, because we are that. And the more strongly an individual identifies with the group, the more powerful the egregore becomes. But there's a trade-off. As the egregore's power grows, individual freedom of thought and action often diminishes. You start thinking and feeling not as an individual, but as a representative of the group. Let's talk about energy. This is where we see a crucial distinction in psychic dependence. An archetype does not depend on our attention to exist. It's a fundamental pattern of the universe, like a law of physics. It can't be depleted. It doesn't seek its own survival or try to control us. An archetype doesn't take anything from us. It simply reveals itself, offers its wisdom or its challenge, and then recedes back into the unconscious. An egregore is the complete opposite. It is entirely dependent on our energy. It literally feeds on the attention, emotion, and loyalty of its members. Without that continuous stream of psychic energy, it weakens and eventually dissolves. This is why egregores actively try to maintain themselves. They create symbols, doctrines, and enemies to keep their members engaged and unified. An egregore can feel like a psychic vampire, absorbing our energy and demanding our allegiance. Of course, both of these forces come with their own set of risks and potential distortions. The dangers linked to egregores are probably more familiar to us. We see them in the news every day. Fanaticism, where the group's ideology becomes absolute truth. Conformity, where individual thought is suppressed in favor of the group consensus. A loss of critical thinking and discernment. A complete fusion of one's identity with the group, leading to blind obedience, and the justification of terrible acts in the name of the collective. But archetypes have their dangers too, though they are more subtle. The primary risk is what Jung called archetypal inflation. This is when the ego mistakenly identifies with the archetype. For example, a person who has a powerful experience of the hero archetype might start believing they are the messianic hero, destined to save the world. This isn't the fault of the archetype itself. It's the ego's inability to handle such a powerful energy without becoming inflated. Other risks include symbolic confusion, where we misinterpret the deep messages of our dreams and fantasies, or mythological projection, where we project archetypal roles onto ordinary people, like seeing a politician as a savior or an opponent as the devil incarnate. Now for one of the most important and often overlooked points, the interaction between archetypes and egregores. They aren't always separate. In fact, successful egregores almost always use archetypes to legitimize themselves and give themselves a sense of timeless power. A nation-state egregore will activate the archetype of the father, the motherland, or the heroic warrior to inspire loyalty. An institutional religion will build its entire structure around the archetype of the savior, the divine mother, or the enlightened sage. A political ideology will mobilize the powerful archetype of the shadow, casting its opponents as the ultimate enemy that must be vanquished. The archetype is the deep, living source of power. The egregore is the cultural container, the frozen form that channels that power for its own purposes. The danger comes when the egregore becomes too rigid, too dogmatic. When that happens, the living spirit of the archetype withdraws, and the form is left empty, a hollow shell that demands loyalty but offers no real spiritual nourishment. From a deeper spiritual perspective, we can see this even more clearly. Archetypes are universal movements of consciousness itself, expressing its infinite possibilities through the human psyche. Egregores are temporary, symbolic constructions happening within the collective mind. In a non-dual vision, the archetype is a direct expression of being, while the egregore is a crystallization of thought. One opens you to the infinite. The other structures your finite experience. One transforms you. The other organizes you. So, to conclude, it is vital not to confuse these two levels of reality. To confuse an archetype with an egregore is to confuse the source with the form, the living with the constructed, a true initiation with a sense of belonging. The archetype calls you to a profound inner transformation. The egregore offers you collective stability, often at the price of that transformation. The real psychological and spiritual challenge for a conscious human being is this: to learn how to inhabit the power of the archetypes without identifying with them, and to learn how to use the structures of egregores without submitting to them. It is in navigating this fine line that we find true clarity, inner freedom, and a conscious, empowered relationship to the vast collective forces that shape our world. Thanks so much for watching. If this exploration sparked something in you, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next video.